Welcome to our second in our visually building series. In this tutorial, we're going to be building this payment selection screen element. And the purpose of this element is to prompt the customer for one or two payment options when they're purchasing the product. So we're going to achieve this look where we have buttons, where the text changes down here, and they can add to cart, and it's going to interact with the single page checkout that we built in the previous tutorial. This will also be done in a responsive fashion so that when we're in a mobile view, we want to achieve a look like this, where we have the image and the bullet points followed by the option. So that's what we're going to be building today. And so let's go ahead and talk about getting started. We have a two-column layout where we have the image and the bullet points on the left, and then we have the payment selection, product features, pricing, add to cart button, and card logos on the right. And once again, we're doing this live and unedited, so you'll see exactly how we go about the process. So here we are on the single page checkout that we built in the last tutorial, and we're going to go ahead and open up our hierarchy, and here's that single page checkout that we built. And we're going to go ahead and start by putting a section above this, and we will go ahead and let's go ahead and name that section for payment count section. Okay. Within that, let's go ahead and add a row, which is 2 columns wide. And then inside the first row, we'll go ahead and I always kind of like to, when I'm adding these rows to, we're going to kind of stub out the different rows real quick and zero everything out. So over here, row, row, we'll do this as a row, and then we're going to get into this content that's actually going to be changing. So we're going to add some child rows here, 1 wide, and let's open up our hierarchy. Okay, so that's our first row. We'll add below another row. We'll do this one 2 across. That to be for our buttons. And let's add yet another row for our features. We'll go ahead and start naming stuff. Choose option row, payment method row, product features row. Let's go back and take a look. So this section here is going to actually change out this whole entire section. So we'll go ahead and add 2 more rows. One payment row, and this will be our 2 payment row. Once again, naming just helps you to keep track of everything that you have going on. So we have the basic row and column structure laid out. At this point, I'm actually going to zero out all of the margin and padding as a starting point. So you can see everything got real tight. I knocked out all margin and padding all the way down. So let's go ahead and start off on the left hand side with that image. Alright. And I'm going I'm going to actually select the image that I've already uploaded, but if I didn't have it up there, I could upload it by clicking right here. Okay, we have that image down on the page. Let's take a look a little closer at the image. We obviously have some rounded, we have a box shadow and some border radius and some margin. So let's just copy all of this custom styles. We'll go into the image and we're gonna put the margin in here. So the margin bottom will be 10 pixels. But let's go ahead and we'll accomplish the other settings through some scoped CSS. Oops. And it's worth noting that we actually have to target the child image tag. So there we go. So we can see here that the box shadow and the border radius are actually on the image tag inside there. Okay, on to the bullet list. I'm going to copy those bullets and make it a little easy on myself to paste. So let's come in here and add a bullet list widget below. And we're going to use the check icon. Make that green. And then let's come out here and double click. That'll get us into edit mode. And I'm just going to paste in, let's see here. It's kind of a little strange. See how it goes when it saves. Okay, save fine. Just a temporary little render thing. And probably need a little margin above this list. Yeah. It has some padding and some margin, so we'll go ahead and accomplish the same thing. "15 pixels of padding all around, and we'll put 13 pixels of margin on the top. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. Now let's move over here to the title up here. So we're going to start off by making the background color of this row a nice dark purple, and I've gone ahead and found some of those color codes from the previous page. So I've gone ahead and set that to be a dark purple, and we'll go ahead and add a headline element. Alright, there's our headline. Obviously the default color doesn't contrast well, so on our headline let's go ahead and make the color white. Okay, they have about 25 pixels of padding on that, so let's go ahead and also that they have the font at 22 pixels. So on our headline, let's go ahead and go down to fonts. We'll make that 22 pixels, and then we'll go to padding, and that was 25 on the top and the bottom. And let's knock out any default margin, so let's take that to 0. And then we'll simply change the text, choose your option, ... Okay, inside here we have two different buttons, so let's go ahead and create the first button. Definitely have some styling to do to get this button into shape. So let's go ahead and come in here and start changing the text. We want it to be one payment. We're going to go ahead and make the style flat color. That'll get rid of those defaults. And let's go ahead and make it full width. Now we have a couple of different colors to pick up on here. All right. So we'll set our background color first, and then we'll grab our foreground color. Okay. And then we're actually going to end up using this purple as our hover color. So we'll set the hover background color. Now we're going to end up doing these two buttons. Likewise, we'll set the hover text color to white. We're going to end up doing these two buttons in what's called a button group, and that's going to allow them to toggle. We're going to achieve that toggling effect. So I'm actually going to go up to this row, and I'm going to wrap this with a button group element. The button group is pretty simple. It gives you the option to choose which button's the default. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then on the button itself, I'll tell it to participate in that button group. What this is going to allow me to do is have some additional colors for when things are active. So I can go ahead and grab that purple color again. So as I hover, it'll turn purple. And we're actually going to use a dark purple for the border color. So we'll go down here, and this style has a 3-pixel solid border. So there's our dark purple. And what we're actually going to use is the same background color for when it's inactive. That way the border has the same thickness and the colors will match. It'll look uniform. Okay. Now let's go ahead and we're going to duplicate this button. We'll drag that down a column. We'll set this to 2 payments. Alright, let's go ahead and save and see what we got. Okay, so the page loaded, and you see here we have the button, and they're trying to toggle. Looks like we have about 10 pixels around the outside edge of those buttons, so let's go ahead and work on that next. Okay. We're going to do that by putting some padding on the column. So we'll go to the column, and while we're at it, this is not going to, we're always going to have 2 buttons side by side, So I'm going to change the width of the column to be just 6 pixels. I mean six columns wide when we're in small and up view. And now let's go to padding. Because the two columns will meet in the middle, we'll keep that at 10 on the right. And then we can do the same over here. Make that 6 wide, 10, 10, 10, 5. Alright, that gives us a nice uniform look. This content back here is a darker color. So let's grab that background color and we'll go fix some of those rows. Very subtle, may not even be visible on the video. Okay, we'll see here that the buttons have no action set, so we'll go ahead and adjust that as well. The purpose of these buttons is simply to show and hide other content. So we'll choose the show and hide action, and then we're going to choose the corresponding row. So each button is only responsible for interacting with the content it wants to show, and when the button is clicked, the other one will be told to do an unclick and it will reverse it and actually hide its content. So likewise, show and hide, and we'll come down here and choose the second row. So those buttons are now wired up to show these two elements here. Okay, so looking at this content is the next block we're going to work on, and this doesn't have any change between the two. So we're calling that our feature content. So I think we should do a headline, a panel, and then we'll accomplish this with headline, bullet list, divider, headline. So we'll just come into the hierarchy. There's our product features. And we'll start adding some content. So headline, and then we'll do that panel. And just a panel lets us arbitrarily control stuff. Think of it as like a div. So we'll add the headline that goes below, and then we'll get inside of the panel. And we're going to accomplish that with headline, bullet list, a divider, and then finally another headline. Okay. So let's go ahead and edit this headline. And our text actually has that strike through, and if we copy and paste that in, it'll actually carry over the tags from the other one. So pretty easy to do there. Come back and adjust fonts in a second. Go ahead and get these bullets in there. Okay. I actually got one extra headline in there. I'll delete that. Okay, here's our background color, and then we have some padding, box shadow, etc. So let's go ahead and tune up the panel. Here's our panel. Let's go ahead and push it in. Should be about 10 pixels. Yeah. So we'll push that in. We'll give the panel its background color. Alright. Got some padding to deal with. And then it had a box shadow. And box shadow is not directly controllable, so we'll just use some scope CSS. We'll place that box shadow on there. Alright. Also going to put some margin at the bottom of that panel. There we go. Okay, we need to move. Let's take a look at our fonts real quick. 20-point font, 16-point font. Okay, so 20 up here, everything in here is 16, and we need to move that over 30-40 pixels. So we'll start, we'll put some margin on the left. Let's see what 40 pixels looks like. Not bad. We'll go ahead and move our headlines over. Let's take care of those fonts while we're in here. 16 pixels. Pixels. Clean up some of those extraneous. So add a little margin up here. They accomplished this border. Just I'm putting it on the element. We're going to actually use our divider element just to get some practice with it. So we'll come in here and set the divider color, and then we'll go ahead and take down all the margin and padding on it. Tighten it up. Okay, looks pretty good. Go ahead and save. Okay, now down below we need to get this content in here as well as the button. Alright, we're going to accomplish this by using an HTML block. And I've already extracted the HTML from the other page and adjusted it, but there's a lot of formatting in there, and sometimes it's just better to take a block of HTML and put it in there. If you're going to use the HTML element though, make sure that your tags are properly balanced. So there we have that particular HTML. Now let's do the one for the to pay. Oops, make sure you go into the raw mode, paste that in there. Okay, looks pretty good. Now we need to focus on this button. Let's take a look at some of the colors that are involved here. We'll go ahead and get the different colors. That'll be our light color, standard 3 pixel, very much like our header above. We're going to do white, and then we got a slightly different color for hover on the background. So let's see if we can pull that off. Now before we drop the button in there, the button needs to know what item to add, and because we're doing a landing page style of product selection, we're actually going to use the item element. And what the item element lets you do is specify a particular element, a particular item as the context. So I've gone ahead and configured this one with a one pay item. Now we'll add our button. Okay. And so we're going to tell this button to add to cart, add item to cart. And so it's going to know, let's take a look at that. This button, when it clicks add item to cart, will go up to here and go, this is the item, one payment. So our text will be add to cart. And let's pick the icon. Oops. Okay, there's our icon. We want it on the right. Our action will be add to cart, replacing any items in there. Oops. And then when the item does add to cart, we're going to tell it to scroll down to the single page checkout, because there could be a lot of content in between the button click and there. Once again, we're going to go to that flat color style, and then we're going to pick all of our colors. Text color white, background color a light orange, hover background color slightly darker. We'll go down to our borders, 3 pixels. We can use the link icon. See how it linked all those to the same size. Solid. Alright, so there we have that style. Let's get the width, full width, and then 40 pixels of padding. Okay, Let's go ahead and put some margin on this element to push the button down. Actually, it's going to be easier to put the margin on the button. There we go. Okay. This button's actually the same, so let's go ahead and let's just duplicate it. Oh, we need to come down here and put our item element in. And I already configured an item called toPayment. Now I'm just going to bring my button down and place it inside of the item element. Okay. Back up to these buttons up here. They also need 40 pixels of padding on the top. Okay. Now we need to get some padding in between these two. We're going to do that by using the columns at the very top. Here are the two columns we're working with. Keep in mind, when we're in a mobile view, this will be full width, and then in a tablet and up view, it'll be half of it. So we're going to come into the padding. On tablet view, we'll set the right padding to be 15 pixels on this column, and then on the right hand column, tablet up, padding will be 15 pixels on the left. There we go. Okay, we do need to add some card logos. So let's go ahead and we'll add a new row below here. Go ahead and name it the card logo row. And we can put the credit card logos widget in. And now this widget, because there's many logos that can stack up, we're going to go ahead and set it to be inline block so that the widget only takes up the minimal amount. And then I'm going to actually come back up to the column and I'm going to mess with the centering up here so I can get my logos centered. And then we got some little text here. Use a text block. You know, sometimes the copy and paste is a lot. There we go. Keep in mind, you can control all your fonts at each of the different breakpoints and even turn on fluid fonts. So if your design requires it, you can make those fonts quite responsive. Let's put a little, let's see here actually. There we go. these images here are probably 50 pixels tall, and the ones in our default card logos are definitely not that tall. We have an image and it's set to be like a max height of 36. So I'm just going to use some more scope CSS. So images, I'm going to change that max height to 50 pixels. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and save. Some more box shadow here. In order to get that box shadow to go cleanly around this content right here, I am going to need to introduce a new row. Let's see, actually I'll just use the before I move content, and I'm going to zero it all out. Margin padding. And now let's go ahead and get that box shadow in here. That should do the trick. Yep. Okay, that row has box shadow. Now what we can do is just, no, actually we need to, if we expand this, then we can just drag elements over. Okay. That I think is a fairly good representation. Obviously you could put a background image on a container or the section and some of that other content, but we're going for the interactive parts. Okay, when the page loads, the default button will automatically be selected. You can see we have the 198 option. When we click it, it adds that to the cart and scrolls down. We can change to the second payment, click add to cart. You can see it replaced. And then finally, if we start looking at this in responsive mode, we can see how we're doing there. Probably would be a good idea for us to give some additional margin when we're in a responsive state. So let's go ahead and do that. So these are the two columns, and what we'll do is we'll say, okay, when you're in mobile view, we want to do 10 pixels, but then when you go to tablet, let's see here. Actually, I'm going to do it with my padding. Ten pixels left and right, and then we have it set to go 15 and 0 when we get to tablet. Mobile 10 pixels left and right, 15 and 0. There we go. Let's see how that turned out. Okay, that looks nice. Okay. There we go. All right, that will conclude it for this live visual building tutorial.